What is up, Bills Mafia, and anybody else that is tuning into the podcast? The Undercovers podcast is back. I'm Connor here with Paul and Ben. Ben being the other loyal FSU fan who is extremely excited about our second round pick and our first pick of the 2024 NFL draft in Keon Coleman. Ben and I tried to tell all of you long before Keon was drafted that if Keon was a Bill, Keon would be the guy that everybody loved to death. And look, everybody in Bill's Mafia loves him. And he's going viral for the right reasons, unlike a certain other wide receiver. You know what I mean? But
If you know, you know.
yeah, if you know, you know. But we have a very, very interesting show planned tonight. So I want to go ahead and jump right into it because we have some fun topics to talk about. To start off, let's go into the quick takes. Ben, I want to ask you what might be a very obvious question. Will the Falcons regret taking Michael Penix with the whatever pick they had in the 2024 NFL draft?
I liked how you actually pronounced his name right. I'll be the contrarian tonight. I'll
Oh,
say
no.
no because I think Green Bay is showing the NFL the right way to groom a quarterback. And if you look at Patrick Mahomes and some of the other better quarterbacks, they sat for a little bit and learned. Um, and yes, I know Josh Allen kind of, he had to start early because of Nathan Peterman, but he still sat a couple games his rookie year because of the injury. So, I mean, I think it proves beneficial to A, have the experience, but I think B, to be properly developed, to kind of just learn behind an established vet. Like, look how good Jordan Love is playing right now. And I actually am a pretty big Michael Penix fan. I thought he would be a good fit to Atlanta before they got Cousins. And I actually didn't even think about the Falcons to take Penix, but I honestly love it. I think, give it probably 3 years until you'll see Michael Penix there, but you got Kirk Cousins for the next 2 years, and that's still a win now team. Despite that, they still had an interesting draft taking Rook Ahorohoro over pretty much every defensive tackle besides Byron Murphy. Like Johnny Newton was still available, Chris Jenkins,
Yeah.
Braden Fisk was available, Michael Hall. Like there was a massive run on D tackles in that second round
Mhm.
after they took Rook, but overall, they still added Braylon Trice, which was a nice get for them. I forgot who else they added later on. They had another pick that was pretty decent after that. But I think the Falcons. I don't think it was an awful pick. I think they could have honestly had a better pick, for a win now team. But if they want the quarterback of the future, I think they made the right choice.
Now I have to be the contrarian to you. What what timeline is this? So here's the whole thing. I agree with the Green Bay take because they definitely had the right blueprint. But are we really going to say that by the Falcons saying they want to follow the Green Bay blueprint, that they're practically comparing Kirk Cousins to Aaron Rodgers in terms of a mentor? I mean, that's one reason why Jordan Love is so good is that Aaron Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers and Kirk
Yeah,
Cousins
but
is Kirk Cousins.
here's the thing. Do we know that, Cousins is gonna not mentor Love, because I think you can look at Rodgers kind of not really, accepting the Love pick until the last couple of years. He kind of gave him the cold shoulder, to be honest, when he first got to Green Bay. So, I mean, I guess it really goes back to Kirk Cousins, but he's already got all that guaranteed money. He's gonna make it no matter what. So I don't really think Kirk Cousins is really sweating it out. I mean, he probably realized. I mean, he has to realize he's 36. He's not gonna, play probably for 4 more years anyways. And even if he does, they could trade him or release him, and he can get another bag because he, as far as a player finessing the system, like Cousins' agent is a Hall of Famer with the amount of money that man has gotten for one playoff win. Now, I'm not here to slander Kirk Cousins because I do like him as a player, and in my opinion, wins aren't a quarterback stat. So his playoff record, I don't think, is reflective on how he is as a player. But I mean, it was an interesting pick by the Falcons.
Yeah, I don't think that what you just said is an opinion. I think that's borderline fact. If wins were a quarterback stat, then I think we'd have a lot more interesting debates when it comes to who is the GOAT and who's not the GOAT. But I
For
like that
sure.
I like that you mentioned Braylon Trice as one of their picks. I actually really liked their pick of JD Bertrand out of Notre Dame, the linebacker.
Oh yeah, that was
That
a good one.
Yeah, he was a defensive captain at Notre Dame. So they went with two defensive captains from their previous schools in Bertrand and Trice. Their defense is going to look better, but at the same time, I mean, you're filling in guys that may or may not be impact starters when you could have taken Dallas Turner in round 1 and had a competent starter, and then in like
Right.
round 4 or maybe 5, you take a guy like Jordan Travis to have your quarterback of the future if you really wanted it to be like that. Because I mean, I could wax poetic on Jordan Travis. Ben, you know how I feel about our quarterback. Paul, you know how I feel about Jordan Travis. I wrote a whole article on why Jordan Travis is underrated, and he's a jet.
Yep.
But
Um,
I do want to move on to the second question, unless you had any other last tidbit on that whole discussion,
no, we
Ben.
can go to the
No?
second one.
Okay, cool. All right, Paul, I want to ask you the question now. Between the Falcons or the Packers, who had the worst draft? I'm gonna poke your brain here on what should be a pretty obvious answer.
Both teams had some wild reaches. You know,
Yeah.
I you I mean, I can just remember I just on draft night, we're all just sitting here waiting. Like we all basically had a prediction of like the Falcons pick in our brain, and then all of a sudden you just hear Connor scream what, and it's just game over. It's like, and then Michael Penix comes out as the pick. But what shocked me more was the Green Bay Packers in two of their first two picks of the NFL draft were massive reaches. I mean, their first pick, they took believe a guard that probably shouldn't have been taken because there was Graham Burton and JPJ on the board.
Mhm.
And then they went out and grabbed, I think his name is Tanner Morgan. And then their second pick, I believe Cooper DeJean was still on the board.
Jordan Morgan.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
Jordan
Jordan
Morgan
Morgan,
in
that's what it
round
was.
1.
I actually like the Edgerrin Cooper pick. Um, I thought that was a solid pick. They kind of need to shore up. I think I talked about it before, but they kind of need to shore up that linebacking core. That's really their biggest weakness. I mean, they probably could have
Mhm.
used a defensive lineman. I don't know. They drafted after Seattle, right? So they weren't in range for Murphy. I guess they could have gone Newton. Um, I like the Bullard pick though to replace
Oh, yeah.
Darnell Savage. They needed another safety.
Yeah.
I believe they signed the safety in free agency too. Who
I
did?
believe so, but I don't quite
Let me
remember
see.
who it was. But, I do wanna
Because now I think the Packers actually have something cooking on defense.
Oh, they
Um,
do.
That secondary was definitely a need of theirs, and they
oh yeah, they
Mhm.
signed
definitely
Xavier McKinney. So Xavier
Oh, yeah,
that's
yeah.
McKinney,
who it was.
Really,
Wow.
really
yeah,
good,
that's
really good.
a really good safety. So Xavier McKinney and Bullard, like that's gonna be a pretty good safety combo. Um,
I do wanna bring up one other thing that,
sure.
was mentioned. I know we're all laughing about the Jordan Morgan pick, and rightfully so. That was one of the worst picks of the first round, right behind the Michael Penix pick.
Yeah,
But
that was crazy.
I actually really liked the Edgar and Cooper pick in round 2.
Oh, I mentioned that as
Simply
well. I liked
Yeah,
it.
because they released Devondre Campbell, and Quay Walker is, they
Yeah.
really
Yeah,
needed an impact player in the linebacking core, and they
he's
made a good decision.
the best linebacker in the draft, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah, he was definitely one of, if not the best linebackers
Right.
in the draft, and the fact that the Packers got him where they did is quite amazing, if you ask me. So I think that was a good pick. The Javon Bullard one was really good. The Kitan Oladipo pick in the 5th round, that was
I
a
know
really
that's
good
your
pick
guy.
too. Yeah, I really liked him, and the fact that the Packers got him was really, really good. Other than that,
Back
I
with the
feel like
first round pick, they had a pretty solid draft. I mean,
it was solid. It wasn't ideal. I mean, there were definitely some reaches in the later rounds, but all in all, it was still a really, really solid draft. Aside from obviously Jordan Morgan, that's the equivalent to like when the Patriots picked Cole Strange in the first round a
oh
few years
man,
ago. If
yeah,
anybody
that was a
remembers
strange
that,
pick.
that was
Yeah.
you had to say it, Paul. I knew somebody was going to say it. I didn't know if it was going to be you or Ben, but yeah, it was definitely a strange pick.
Wasn't Strange that year supposed to be like a fifth round pick, and they just took him in the first round? I think that's what his projection
Something
was.
like that, or like a
It
Strange.
third
it was
rounder.
similar. He was a mid-round pick, and they took him in the first round, and I believe it was at pick 28 that year. So
Anyways,
yeah,
let's move
it
on.
yeah, it was bad, but we're gonna move right into, I'm sure, what
Trivia.
everybody here has been waiting for. Yes, a trivia question.
Trivia.
Paul, I believe you have
Yeah,
the answer,
I do.
and you
I
have the
have the
question.
answers.
You have
I
the
do.
answer and you have the question.
I
I'm gonna
do.
feel bad because I can't remember all the picks. But anyway, hit us.
You and Ben can work together if you want, or you can make this a friendly competition. I thought I could have made this way harder, like who are all the Bills FSU selections throughout the entirety, but I'm like that goes all the way back to 1972, so like I wasn't going to stretch your brains too much. But so between 2012 and 2024, the Bills have drafted 7 FSU players. Can you name them?
Oh man. Other than the obvious in Keon,
Is
Yeah,
that
that's
including
your
Keon
gimme.
Coleman?
Well, Keon Coleman's your gimme. That's like your free pass.
All right,
And
so there's
bingo.
yeah.
7.
There's Keon and there's
So
6
I know
more.
there's obviously EJ
I was
Manuel.
about to say, didn't you
Yep.
guys draft DJ Manuel all them
Yeah,
years
that's
ago?
2. Carlos Williams is 3.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Nick O'Leary's 4.
Oh yeah, I forgot Nick O'Leary was a Bill at one point.
Nigel Bradham is 6. There's 5. Sorry. Did I already say Ronald Darby? I think I did.
No, you didn't.
Oh, that's 5. The Bradham guy is not.
Oh,
Maybe I
He's
missed
not in
one on
there.
the way up. No.
You must have missed him
interesting.
because Nigel
You must have
Bradham
missed him.
was 20. I want to say 2012 or 2013. I think it was 2013.
I must have missed
Yeah.
him. That must have been 8 then. Weird.
Okay,
Almost there.
so let me go through them again. Um, I got Dustin Hopkins, right?
You just got him now.
All right, Dustin Hopkins is another one. No kicker. I think he only played for the Bills 1 year. Then he got injured his rookie season.
I think you're right.
Let me
On my list, you have one more to get.
one more.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think.
Want the year?
Sure, you can give me the year.
Yeah.
2012.
2012. Ooh,
2012.
who
2012.
the Bills draft in 2012?
What round was this?
5th.
5th round pick?
Yeah.
What position?
Oh crap! I didn't write that down.
Oh my God, Paul.
Oh my gosh.
I don't even remember, to tell you the truth. Oh,
I give up.
Connor, any final guesses?
my brain is broken because only ones I ever remembered. That was the only one I really ever remembered. My brain is broken.
All right. I'm going to butcher his first name probably, but that's okay. Zebri Sanders.
See,
That is a name I have not
2012
heard in
fifth
a
round.
very long time. A very long time.
2012
okay.
fifth round pick.
Yeah, for some reason I don't. Yeah, 2012. He must have not have played on the Bills for that long.
I don't think he did because I don't remember him either.
So Bradham was 2012 as well, but he was the 4th round.
Mm-hmm.
I must have missed him.
Yeah. Well, let's move on.
Call it a
Yeah.
win since I missed one. You could just replace the 7th. There you guys go.
Well, we did get 7, so
Yeah, I mean, you got all of them pretty much. But yeah, we are moving on into what everybody was actually waiting for, which is our block on the Bills draft. So, I want to pose the question to both of you. Actually, no,
Wait,
you know
hold
what?
up. Let's go. Let's rank our best and worst drafts.
Oh, okay, you want to do that first? All right, cool.
Yeah.
Then we're going to do that. All right. You know what, Paul, we're going to start with you because I have a
Okay.
feeling you're about to make me laugh.
Okay.
Top 5 best drafts in the league and top 5 worst drafts in the league. Go.
All right. I'll start off with the top 5 best drafts first. Because I know I'm the best right now. Because that's what I have written down. At 1, I think I have the Baltimore Ravens as the best draft in the NFL right now.
oh
I
wow.
mean, they go from cornerback Wiggins to Rosengarn. I mean, they also got a DC Isaac, and then they go
Mhm.
TJ Tampa, and then you have Tez Walker, filter in, I believe another wide receiver. They went 2 wide receivers in this, I believe, in this draft class. So they hit in the area of kind of the most need, which was wide receiver, and they got some pretty solid ones. And they just really throughout the draft is as players continued to fall, they just basically say, "You fell, I'm taking you," and
Mhm.
they just for the benefit of just all these stupid passes on some of these players that just fell randomly.
Mhm.
2, I'm going to say the Rams. I mean, first, Fisk, Corum, their top 3 picks from this draft. You can't do it. You probably can't do better than that. And in a top 3, just 2 of the best, maybe defensive linemen in the draft, and then you get one of the better running backs, and then they go Jordan Whittingham, uh, in
Whittington.
the
Yeah,
Winnington.
Jordan
Sorry.
Whittington in the 6th.
Yeah, that was a good
Mhm.
value pick. He's a good player.
Mhm. Yeah, Jenna kinda sold me on him after talking to me about him and, watching some of his tape. But I for the Rams not having a first round draft pick in however many years it's been, I think since 2016, they nailed it with Jared Verse. Like, I'm amazed he fell that far. I honestly thought he was gonna be gone well before 19. But
Mhm.
we have a quarterback run to thank for that. Thanks, Falcons.
Yeah.
Alrighty,
Okay,
Paul,
quick.
keep
Number
going.
3, I don't want to put this team on the list, but I kind of had to. It was the Miami Dolphins. I mean, they had they
Interesting.
had a really good draft. I mean, Chop Robinson, Patrick Paul, 2 guys that one guy that Connor really liked and one guy I liked in Patrick Paul. I mean, they go Jalen White, running back, add to that prolific white running back core, and then the Kamara to try to solidify that line. And then the Jaguars. I think the Jaguars. Oh, sorry. I'm actually going to flip flop the Jaguars and Eagles here. I'm going to
I
do
was about to
Eagles
say, you
4,
really think
Jags 5.
you really think the Jags had a good draft?
They did.
Interesting.
I
Look,
I,
they.
I
Let
yeah,
me
I want to hear
let me
this. I want to hear this
let
right
me
now.
let me talk Jags for a second at 5,
Yeah,
and
you,
then
you
if I
need
have
to
some
speak.
time, I can backtrack to the Eagles. But they choose BTJ. They trade down for him. Remember that. They took the last Bills wide receiver on our board, and then they go Mason Smith on the defensive line, Jordan Jefferson, who was also on that defensive line at LSU, somebody that I've been mocking to the Bills the entire draft, and then they go Miles Cole for their final pick. They hit on the top end of the draft, and they filter in with some really quality low late round picks. And if you want a good draft, you have to hit on the top, but you also have to filter in quality at the bottom, and they did that.
hmm I mean, I'll be honest. After Brian Thomas Jr., I want to say every one of their picks, aside from maybe a few of the later round picks, were obvious reaches. I love my guy Jerry Jones. Ben, I know you do too. but the fact that he went as high as he did was appalling. Everywhere I heard, they were all like, "Why did the Jags take Jerry and Jones at 30 in their third round when they could have probably had him in the fifth round?" Like the Jags just pulled off some of the most incredible reaches, and Jerry and Jones was one of them. Even though I love him to death, and I liked the Mason Smith pick, of course, but the rest of them, once you get later, like what were they doing? What were they cooking? What are they doing? Like that's all I want to ask is what are they cooking up there in Duval? Because they did fulfill all their needs, but they reached on a lot of picks to do it. And
All right, let's hear your top 5 now, Connor.
all right, you want mine? All right, let's
Yeah.
go. All right. Oh, by the way, disclaimer. None of our personal top fives have the Bills in it just by default. We'll give our honest opinions on the Bills takes later. But first and foremost, I am going to circle back to the Los Angeles Rams as one of the teams with a top 5 draft. Obviously, for what Paul said, the Jared Verse, Braden Fisk, and Blake Corum picks in the first 3 rounds were home run knocks, just knock out of the park picks, especially the fact that they were able to get Jared Verse and Braden Fisk together. Like that was crazy. I didn't genuinely anticipate that a team was going to get them paired up, but the Rams did. And the fact that they got them paired up, Ben, you know, like I do, that's going to be disgusting once they start working together and just destroying offensive lines. The only pick I really didn't like was the obvious one in Cameron Kinchins. I think he went way too high, but they needed a safety, and I guess they wanted to take a chance on a guy with questionable injury history and questionable coverage. But moving on to a team that, Paul, you didn't talk about, the Pittsburgh Steelers, I think had one of the best drafts in the entire league. Obviously, they needed to shore up the offensive line to protect new quarterback Russell Wilson. Troy Fautanu and Zach Frazier were 2 really good picks to do just that. And then they doubled down on the offense by adding Roman Wilson. You guys both know how much I wanted Roman Wilson on the Bills. And the fact that they got him, man. The Steelers are a wide receiver factory. They're always going to find ways to take a wide receiver in the mid to late rounds and make him into some all pro. I mean, remember, Antonio Brown was, I believe, a 6th round pick, and the rest of their receivers that have been really noteworthy names with the Steelers have not fared better anywhere else. Like Juju Smith Schuster, Chase Claypool, now Deontay Johnson to the mix. Plenty of them. But moving on to, I also have a good feeling about the Minnesota Vikings draft. Obviously, you know, they needed a quarterback, and they got the guy they wanted to get. They got JJ McCarthy, and they took advantage of the Falcons being, well, dumb, and got Dallas Turner also in the first round. Like that's a slam dunk on your first 2 picks. Like you have your quarterback of the future, and you've got a stud on defense. You know, and later on, you know, they added to the O line with Walter Rouse and Michael Jurgens. Both were pretty good picks, and you know, you got to protect the new quarterback at all costs. Adding depth to the most important position group in the NFL is huge. Other than the Vikings, out of the rest of them that I don't believe Paul talked about, okay, no, I don't. Actually, no, I do have one more that I wanted to talk about that wasn't one of Paul's because obviously I didn't think the Jags had a good draft, and that would be the other Florida team, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think they had an incredible draft, personally. Graham Barton, got to protect Baker Mayfield. Tyke Smith in the 3rd round was really, really nice. Like, I mean, really nice. And then they added depth at wide receiver with Jalen McMillan. And last but not least, because it was already discussed, the Dolphins. They really did have a good draft. You hate to admit it. All of us as Bills fans, we hate to admit it, but they did.
Hate to admit it. They did.
Jalen Wright was a very questionable trade at the beginning, but from what I understand, they actually are going to be projected to get a third round pick as a comp pick next year. So that's why they gave up their current third round pick to move up for Jalen Wright. And Raheem Mostert, he's going to be on his way soon. He's getting up there in age. So they're going to have to
I'll give the
replenish the
Falcons
backfield.
thing.
Yep, it's depth, and then Malik Washington. Good Lord.
All right.
Moving on.
So
Ben, hit us.
So for mine, number 5, I'm gonna go with the Arizona Cardinals. I think they just hit an absolute home run this draft. They're able to get a premier receiver, a pass rusher who
Mhm.
can play multiple positions on the D line, a couple good corners, Trey Benson, Isaiah Adams, and Tip Raymond. So some good work there.
Trey Benson.
Number 4, I had the Rams as well. I actually think the Kitchens pick was decent given it was in the 4th round, so or wherever it was, end of the 3rd round, pick 100.
End
So
of
it
the
was
third.
decent value for them at that point. I like the Brennan Jackson pick as well. I mean, they really prioritize their trenches and improving that defensive line and building it back up post Aaron Donald.
Mhm.
I also have the Colts. I think they did amazing work. They got Latu, Adonai Mitchell, Tanner Bortolini as well.
Mhm.
Yeah, that was a great.
Like they added a D tackle too. I forget which one, but I mean they just had a really good draft in my opinion. Between adding Mitchell, Bortolini, and and of course Latu.
Yeah, that they've had an interesting draft, but continue. I'll
And
give you my
then
thoughts on the end later.
And then for number 4, I got the Raiders. I think all things considered, they didn't get their quarterback, even though they took a tight end early last year. Brock Bowers was the best player on the board, and he's an incredible weapon. They also got Jackson Powers Johnson, who some people had as a top 20 prospect. They added Delmar Glaze, so they're really gonna, build up that O line going forward. And then Richardson was one of my favorite prospects in this whole draft. 6'2" corner who ran a 4.34, so an athletic freak. They also added Dylan Lobb, who is a running back who has Christian McCaffrey type skills, maybe more of a Danny Woodhead, in the NFL, but great route runner. And then my personal favorite, Trey Taylor.
Oh yeah. Same.
Great safety prospect. So I love what the Raiders did. And then finally, I think the Steelers had the best draft overall. We already talked about them, so we don't have to talk about them too much longer. Honorable mention, I will though say the Commanders did some nice work between Johnny Newton, and of course Jaden Daniels. I did like the Bucks as well. Now for my 5 worst drafts, I'll kick off and do these real quickly. But I think the Dolphins had an absolutely atrocious draft. They reached on Chop Robinson,
Okay.
You think
who
they reached on
yeah,
Chop Robinson?
they
I
absolutely
need to hear
did.
I need to
He
hear this.
he
Why?
had he has 6 collegiate sacks, and 2 of them were against the powerhouse known as UMass. So
Yeah, that's
the
definitely a
production
powerhouse
doesn't
there.
yeah, exactly. The production doesn't really match the value. Outside of Micah Parsons, who's an athletic freak, Penn State just really hasn't produced any big time pass rushers at the next level. Patrick Paul was taken, I believe, 15 spots too high according to most mock drafts. He's a project and not ready to play. They wasted a 3rd round pick next year for another running back, which they already have 3 of in their rotation. How about a power back like a Braylon Allen or someone to give you a different flavor? You already have 3 speed backs. Like you don't really need the same thing. I did like the Malik Washington pick, but other than that, I really am not a big fan of Miami's draft. The Texans as well. They took Blake Freeland when they have 2 great tackles under contract. So to take him in the 2nd round, I feel like was kind of it didn't really fill a need. They took a corner who ran a 4.67 at the combine. So I don't even know if he'll be able to do much at the next level. I just really think, this is a Texans team that's close to potentially being one of the better teams in the AFC, and they just completely whiffed on this draft. Or sorry, it was Blake Fisher, not Blake Freeland. The Kalen Bullock pick was interesting, though. I really liked him. But Cade Stover and Jawar Jordan are prospects. Just really not a great draft overall for Houston. They didn't really get much help for CJ Stroud, although they do have great receivers. The Browns also did not have a great draft, in my opinion. I like the Michael Hall pick. I thought that was good, and I think they got Zach Zinter as well. That was a decent pick as well as
They did.
Thrash. But other than that, like they didn't do a lot with this draft. I feel like they didn't really fill most of their needs. A lot of it goes back to the Watson draft,
Oh.
or sorry, trade. Then I have the Titans as one of the worst, or as my second worst draft. I was doing this in reverse order.
Oh,
Tavondre Sweat at pick whatever was with those concerns,
sixth pick in
and
the second round.
he's a rotational player. Like they took him over some other great players. I think that was kind of a reach. Taking JC Latham over Olu Fashanu and Talise Fuaga was also kind of surprising as well. So the Titans, I feel like, didn't
Their
really
guy
do
was
much.
gone.
They didn't do anything to help Will Levis. And then Jacksonville, that's the worst draft, or one of the worst drafts in my opinion. Brian Thomas Jr. was a decent pick. I like the trade down, but other than that, Masan Smith, Jordan Jefferson were overdrafted. They didn't do anything to address the corner situation going forward. So, other than Brian Thomas Jr., I feel like Jacksonville didn't really fill their needs.
Well, they did. They just took players that probably should have been taken
Well,
later.
and they
They
double dipped at a
they
position that they signed Arik Armstead to all that money to.
they double dipped at cornerback with Jerrion Jones and DeAndre Prince. All right, so I will take over for my 5 worst, and here's kind of a little bit of a shocker, I would say. It's not a bad draft if you look at it, but it has the potential to be a very bad draft, and that is the Indianapolis Colts draft class.
Okay.
I you guys both know I did not like Latu because of the incredible medical concerns. And the fact that they took him at 15, really? Like you
Yeah,
guys would
especially over Verse and Turner.
exactly. So you're going to take the chance on a guy who understandably has the higher upside, but that
Sure.
higher upside is plagued with injury concerns. And then in the second round, you took Adonai Mitchell, which do I think the diabetes concerns were overblown? Yes, but it's concerning nonetheless. So you took two major question marks with your top 2 picks. This either has a chance to be really good or blow up in your face spectacularly. So that's why I'm going to say that they had a bad draft. It, it,
Interesting.
it's kind of a
Now I want
questionable
to hear
draft.
who
Maybe not.
your next worst one is,
Okay, next worst.
because I'm sure you're just gonna be all over. Not in a bad way, but I know you like to bring the controversy. I like
Mhm.
it, but
So
that's why
my
I put
one of
Miami in my top 5 or my worst 5.
which okay, one of my other worst 5, you had already mentioned it, Ben, and it was the Tennessee Titans. I
Yep.
strictly believe their guy was gone when they got there. They wanted Joe Alt, but the
Yeah.
Chargers said, "Nope, we want
They
Joe
kind of
Alt
panicked.
worse," and they beat him to the punch. So what they decided to do was they decided to reach for a guy that I'm assuming they probably brought in for multiple visits compared to guys like Telis Fuaga and others that could have been drafted up at that position who I thought were higher rated prospects. And I think most people did too, but they took JC Latham at 7. Like, okay. And then Tavondre Sweat, 6th pick in the second round. Hopefully the character concerns don't come back because if they do, you've wasted a premier pick, which they're no stranger to that. Remember Isaiah Wilson?
Yeah.
They are no stranger to wasting picks. Another one, so that was 2. A third one that I kind of want to bring up, and this is solely for who they drafted, where they drafted, and that's the Raiders. I have questions. You went through that whole draft and you did not get a quarterback.
Yes, that's the one thing I will say.
They are so crazy. Like, are you
I still can't
seriously
believe they
considering?
didn't trade for Justin Fields because that's the perfect team for Justin Fields. Like they're built. They are a win now team minus a quarterback.
And that's what I'd agree. And they're acting like they are a win now team with the Brock Bowers pick in the first round. Like, really? I know the quarterbacks were gone, but really? Like, you couldn't have, like, okay, you went Brock Bowers. Okay, I'll give you that. Jackson Powers Johnson was a really good pick, but you went through the rest of that. You went through the rest of the draft, and you didn't take a chance on anybody. Not Spencer Rattler, not Jordan Travis,
not even Michael Pratt.
Exactly, no one.
Who was in the freaking pool when he got drafted. I don't know if you guys saw that video. That was awesome.
I did not.
I did.
That's cool.
But nobody. Like, they took a chance on nobody. They're really going to try to roll into the season with Aiden O'Connell or whoever they have at quarterback right now.
Yeah.
Bold. And I think it's going to blow up spectacularly. So that was 3. I believe that was 3. That was 3, right,
guys?
That
was 3.
All right.
Yeah.
So 4th is Jacksonville. And yeah, this one sucked. Like, Brian Thomas Jr. was your best pick. And then after that, every other one of your picks was either meh or a reach.
Was this a planned attack at me?
No.
Like Dolphins and Jags?
No. This is me speaking facts. And I don't really, I'll cause some controversy with my honorable mention. But Jarrian Jones in the 3rd round was bold. Like,
who's your worst?
My worst? Do I even have to say it? I feel like it's obvious. I feel like it's very obvious who I'm about to say.
The Jets.
The Atlanta Falcons.
Oh, the Falcons.
I can't get over Michael Penix in round 1 when you just signed
in round 2.
That too. That was another questionable choice.
What a draft for
You know what I
Atlanta.
actually really did like about Atlanta's draft though? Bertrand. And I already said it earlier. I
like Brandon Dorless pick. I thought that was a good pick.
Yeah, that was okay. I felt like
value in the 4th round. Some boards had him in the 3rd round, but
yeah, I think it was okay value.
Let's get the Pauls real quickly, so then we can get to our Bills stuff.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, we got a lot of Bills talk to talk about. This is going to be the quickest. This is going to be the quickest list I'm going to ever do, and it's going to give you so much information. All right, we're going to start with number 5, New England. I think other than the Drake May, they added another quarterback. I kind of didn't like the rest of their draft. You know, I didn't really like the New England draft. Number 4 is I think is the obvious here is the Falcons. I mean, reach on Michael Penix, Ruko Orhoro, just a bunch of reaches, and they're just reaching and hoping it works.
Right.
At number 3 is one that you guys already mentioned as well. The Cleveland Browns. I think the worst drafts here are aligning, and I have the Browns here in twice. I missed it.
Oh my God! You thought they were so bad. You put them on your list twice.
But I have a couple. That's why I have a couple honorable mentions here, to just in case I mess up. So I'm just gonna throw in the Raiders at 2, and then I'm gonna throw for my last for the worst team that I think had the worst draft is America's team, the Dallas Cowboys.
Ooh, wow!
Not like the Dallas Cowboys
like
draft.
The Guyton pick or the Marshawn. They took Did they take? No, it wasn't Marsh. Did they take Marshawn Nealon?
And Ezekiel Elliott at running back.
They did. Yeah. They took Marshawn Nealon.
They did not take one running back in the entire draft when there were some solid ones when they were on the board.
I really like that Cooper Beebe pick though.
I do too. But
Trey Benson was right in
there,
the lab
exactly.
Instead of
like with the Raiders.
I guess they're building a nasty defense, but let's get to the Bills stuff.
Yeah.
But one last thing before we do. I want to cause some controversy. Are y'all ready?
Go
If
ahead.
I had an honorable mention for one of the worst drafts, I think the Jets screwed it up
Yeah, I said the Jets as well.
because I
Yeah, the
really
They took
Jets.
I
2
like
running backs.
Olufashanu. I like Olufashanu, but you literally took Braylon Allen and Isaiah Davis, 2 running
Yes,
backs, and you already have Brees
and
Hall.
as much as I liked Corley at one point, kind of, digging into him more, like he
Yeah,
doesn't
you
re
kind of
people
watch the
complain
tape.
about Coleman, but
Mhm.
Corley doesn't
Malachi
really
Corley
have
has
a route tree either, and most of his yards are screen passes and, yards throws at the line of scrimmage, yards after
mhm,
catch stuff playing in lower competition. So I'm not sure
mhm,
how that will translate to the NFL versus Coleman at least has the size and the
mhm.
athleticism.
And and one more thing to mention,
Well, I
what
was just gonna say
Malachi
kinda
Corley
real quick
produce?
is they had the opportunity to take both Jalen McMillan and Roman Wilson, and
God.
actually Troy Franklin. I would have actually taken all 3 of those guys above
Mhm.
Corley.
Yeah, I would have too. But
Javon
at the
Baker
end of the
too.
at the end of the day though, I
That's
think
why I
my
can't
favorite
knock New England's draft because they got Drake May, Javon Baker, and Jalen Polk.
oh
Like,
yeah,
that's a pretty good haul for
that was
the
a
young
solid
quarterback,
draft.
and as much as we hated Connor, Jaheim Bell in the 7th round was an
Mhm.
absolute steal.
It was. It really was, and I hate it. Like, I really hate it. But speak of FSU steals, that's one of the picks I liked out of the Jets was Jordan Travis. They
Yep.
are going to have a freak at quarterback in a few years, and I hate it. Moving
All right, let's
on,
go from
we have Bills talk to get to because that's what everybody's here for. All right, so the first question, and this is coming straight from the FSU fan himself, the one that wanted Keon Coleman here since day one. I don't want to pose this to you, Ben, because you'll understand a lot, just like I will. You know what, Paul? I'm going to present you the question, considering you don't watch much
go
college
for it.
ball and you probably
I
have
watch
about
college
as
ball.
much. Well, you watch college ball, but you're not an FSU fan who watched every Keon Coleman game like Ben and I did.
Okay.
How good do you think he is going to make our offense in 24? I want to hear it from
If
your
he's
perspective.
gonna From my perspective, I think he's gonna make the Bills offense, one it might not click at the beginning, with the rookie and wide receiver combo, gotta give it a week or two. But think there's a potential here where he makes the Bills a top 5 wide receiver room in the NFL. I think that's I think that can start happening as the season goes on and as we get closer and closer to the postseason. And that's the important piece here to this is as we get closer to the postseason, because the Bills can throw up 35 points a game in the regular season, but if they're only going to throw up 24 points a game, be 10 points away from 10 points down from what they were in the regular season, they're not going to win many playoff games by just not scoring a lot of points in the postseason. So that's where I think Keon Coleman takes the Bills offense, and he adds another element to this Bills offense
Mm,
that is very similar to all the other receivers that we have on our team. He's a guy that I'm honestly really liking. His the personality and all that's there. Every receiver on the Bills team has the opportunity of being a threat deep and of being a threat over the middle and a threat on wide receiver screens. They all have that ability just to get open. Even if they're not open, you could still throw it to them and they'll still catch it. And that's
mhm,
the thing you're getting with Keon Coleman.
mhm,
His 40 speed wasn't fast, but his in-game speed is fast. And
mhm,
that's why the Bills have him at wide receiver. Even though he was the fifth wide receiver on the board, he was the fifth best wide receiver in the eyes of Brandon Beane. And Beane really wanted him. He's going to be a good locker room guy. And I
mhm.
think there is top 5 wide receiver to the Bills have the potential to be a top 5 wide receiver room in the NFL this year.
Can't forget that Josh Allen said he wanted Keon Coleman, and here he is. You got the guy that Allen wants, and that's the best thing about it. You get the guy that your quarterback wants. Like, okay, so I've explained this quite a fair bit, and Ben, you understand like I do. FSU's playbook was very simple. It wasn't really tailored to Keon Coleman's strengths as a receiver. Like like I said, Ben, you know because you watched the games, our offense ran through Trey Benson. Like, period. Trey Benson, you know, Keon on some out routes, Johnny Wilson on more of our middle routes, and then Jaheim Bell. We had a stacked offense. It really didn't
Mhm.
feature any one guy over the other. I really, really can't wait to see what Joe Brady does to unlock Keon Coleman's full skill set. Because to me, the sky is way high. The limit is way higher than just the sky. I'd argue Keon Coleman, due to the limitations at FSU, has the highest ceiling out of any wide receiver in this entire draft, bar none. So that's the best thing about him. That's why I'm glad he's here. And Ben, I'm sure you remember the one-handed grab. I'm sure you watched it live. I don't know if you did. I forget who it was against. But remember when Travis took the snap
Syracuse.
through, yeah, Syracuse. You remember that one, right,
I
Ben?
watched that
Threw
game.
the
I
ball
seen it
right down the
live.
middle, and Keon just goes, "Oop, mine." Like, that's what we're getting in a wide receiver. We really went from a guy that drops a dime in the playoffs, a 60-yard dime, to a guy that can make incredibly acrobatic one-handed catches. Like, we have the potential to have one of the best offenses in the entire league, because you have to remember that Keon will not be the primary target in this offense. Dalton Kincaid will be. Dalton Kincaid, and then running the offense through James Cook as well. You'll get a lot more distribution of targets, so that will allow Keon to kind of mold into his role in the offense, whatever that role might be. So I want to move on to the next question we had with the Bills block. And Ben, this is what I want to ask you, because
Sure.
I see you sitting there just like wishing I'd shut up. So I'll move on. But you guys have heard my take on this. So I want to hear yours, Ben. Do you believe Brandon Beane was right to trade out of the first round with the Kansas City Chiefs, even though they got Xavier Worthy? You guys have heard my take. I want to hear yours.
Oh yes. I actually was a fan. I may be one of the few people who actually liked the move on draft night, even if it
Hmm.
was the Chiefs, because I think Brandon Bean can't, be doing business, with the principles in mind that he's scared of Kansas City. Like he can't worry about what KC's doing and just
Hmm.
focus on building the Bills up to be as good of a football team as possible going
Hmm.
forward. And what he did was able to get that third round pick back that the league stole from us from,
Hmm.
the Tremaine Edmonds comp pick. So that was smart business. And we still were able to get the wide receiver Josh wanted at the end of the day. Um,
Exactly.
and if
Thank you.
Dwayne Carter turns into the next Chris Jones, well, and even if Keon's not a top 5 receiver, say he's top 15, and Worthy's not that good, we may be asking the question like, did KC mess up? So I think it works
Mhm.
both ways. But I like the trade at the time, and I think now looking at it from a full perspective, yes, Jaden Hicks was an absolute steal for them in the 4th round. And as much as I like the Ray Davis pick, I would have maybe preferred Hicks there at that point, but I get what they wanted to do, with going with another running back. So
Mhm.
overall, I'm fine with it.
I'm glad to
No,
hear that somebody is, because everybody and their brother was freaking out over the trade. When you have to
For
realize,
sure.
when you have to realize the way that the board fell, the Chiefs wanted Xavier Worthy no matter what. They were going to pick him at 32 if they had never made this trade. What was going to happen was they were going to pick him, and we were going to wind up not getting a thing. We wound up trading down. They still took the guy they wanted, and we wound up getting compensation from them in return, which at the end of the day netted us what I thought was actually one of our top value picks in Dwayne Carter. So don't hate any trades for any one or any potential pick until they hit the field. That's something that I
Yeah.
just can't stress enough to people. Don't hate who you trade with, because at the end of the day, trading in the draft is a crapshoot. You never know who you're going to get. Look at all the high value picks that have come out of late rounds, and look at how many first round players have been colossal busts. So do not grade this draft until they hit the field. I think, Paul, you were one of the ones that really didn't like the trade,
I
weren't you?
On draft night, I didn't. I think I had a complete emotional breakdown on live. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
I hated Bean for the next 12 hours after that trade. And you know, there's still a small part of me that is worried about this trade. Not from a standpoint that I don't like it anymore. It's a standpoint of the uncertainty of how these rookies are going to turn out to be. You know, at this point, I think the Bills won this trade with the value they got. You know,
Mhm.
the Bills and the Chiefs, they're rivals, but they're not Red Sox Yankees type rivals where they're just saying, no, it doesn't matter what you're giving me. We're just shutting it down. We're looking at the phone. We're just flipping it over, and we're not even going to discuss. Bills
Mhm.
said, "Hey, you want Xavier Worthy? You're going to give us a third round pick in return." And the
Mhm.
Chiefs probably said, "Sure, we'll do it. We want this guy no matter what." So
Thank
I
you.
think Bean at this point made the right business decision.
Mhm.
Did he make
Yes,
the
he
right
did.
selections? We're about to find out.
Yep, there you go. See, that's what I'm saying. I'm glad you're on board. I know you and Jenna weren't very big fans of the trade when it happened, which when you think about it initially, it's like, are we really, really fans? But then you look at what happened and you're like, okay, yeah, we're sold. All right. So Ben has disappeared on us, but I am zipping right off to the last question here. And I want to ask you this one, Paul, because I want to hear your take. You've obviously heard mine on this. Do you believe it was important to draft the defensive future of this team, or should have Brandon Beane kept trying to add to this offense? What do you think?
I'm a little disappointed, I'm going to be honest with you, with the one wide receiver because I was hoping to double dip. But I trust that Keon turns into the number one, and I trust the Bills with the players around Keon Coleman. The Bills' offense will formulate together and
Let me
create one of the
pose
most.
this question to you guys. With the
Oh,
10.3 million we are going to get from Tre'Davious White's post-June designation, could we see possibly another move given we only had one wide receiver pick? Because last year after the draft, I don't know if you remember, we failed to address a couple key positions, and then we signed Leonard Floyd, Poona Ford, and Latavius Murray.
hmm
So we're getting some more cap space. There's still
Mhm.
guys. I mean, OBJ is available.
don't
I
bring
Um,
that into
still.
the
no,
universe. Let him,
go
let
back
him,
and watch
let him
his.
go to Miami. Let him go to Miami.
No, they have enough receivers, but I mean, if you actually turn on his tape, he wasn't halfway bad in
True.
Baltimore last year. He kind of, at times, it looked like he turned back the clock. So, given that we don't have Stephon Diggs anymore, I'm going to cross my fingers and say we might be able to manage one diva wide receivers ego in the locker room for just one season. If he's not your cup of tea, you do have Tyler Boyd, who's a Buffalo
Mhm.
legend already. But
Yep,
he's more of a pure slot guy, unless you want to, have Shakir full time outside, which I guess we'll see.
we
Um,
will.
but DJ Chark's another name that's available.
Mhm.
Or they could do a trade, but I think there's
Exactly.
another move in the works.
I I
And don't
think
forget about our undrafted wide receiver room as
true.
well. We did
True.
draft,
That's
we
a
did
true
sign
stat.
a good bit of undrafted wide
Was it
receivers.
Xavier Johnson, the guy from Ohio State?
Yeah,
He's kind
Yes.
Xavier
of
Johnson
like
Jr.
a Curtis Samuel clone
Mhm.
almost. So
Mhm.
I feel like maybe we're just asking him on the roster just kind of as a developmental piece. But
Correct. So, I mean, don't sleep on undrafted rookies. Like, don't do that.
Yeah,
Bean
So,
don't.
has had a couple wide receiver trades in the past, so he
exactly.
he
Like, I
could pull something
definitely,
off too.
I definitely think that we are going to continue to add to the wide receiver room, like you said, Ben, but we are going to keep in mind the undrafted guys we signed. And I actually have a pretty good feeling about Xavier Johnson Jr., but just as
Oh
long
yeah.
as guard Keaton Bills is a Bill, I'm thrilled. All right, this guy has to
Quick
make the active roster.
to
And he has
finish.
it's just a shame he can't make his number 00.
We need a double zero back in the NFL,
Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, go
but
ahead, Paul.
back to finish my point, I think it kind of correlates to what Ben kind of brought up is the Bills are probably in the mix to adding another wide receiver, so that's why they took one. And I really enjoyed the draft picks that of Cole Bishop. I mean, the entire draft process, he was the guy I really wanted the Bills to take, and they took him. He
Yes.
can cover the tight end. That means we don't have to have a linebacker, possibly a third linebacker out on the field to cover a tight end like a Kelsey or and then another potent tight end because Cole Bishop can do that. Cole
Yeah.
Bishop ran, I think, a 4.45 at the combine. This dude is fast. He can also wrap up and tackle. I mean, you had the safety of your future, and the Bills, I believe, have their edge of the future. We just have to see if what Javon Solomon can do.
Mhm,
But he was on my draft board. They took him, and I really
mhm.
feel like the
I
Bills
think
hit
he's
their
gonna
defensive prospect.
be our version of Bryce Huff. Like, I don't know if he'll ever be a full-time starter, but you bring him in on third downs just to wreck third and longs. Just
Mhm.
picture
I like it.
Force
Von
fumbles coming
Solomon
back.
on one end, Penez on the other, and Dwayne
Mhm.
Carter and
I love it.
Ed Oliver inside, and just absolutely wreck. You can even rush, Milano up the middle or Bernard. You never know which one is blitzing because they're both
Mhm.
almost equally skilled. Um,
Exactly.
Cole Bishop is also an excellent blitzer as well, and I really like the Cole
Mhm.
Yeah.
Bishop pick. But you
Yeah.
also have your potential defensive tackle of the future, your
Hmm.
center of the future, a
Mhm.
Yep.
couple O linemen on the back end, which I think they may have taken one too many high upside tackles. I did like the last one. They picked the guy from England just because the reaction was absolutely
Yeah,
epic.
that Travis Clayton pick was great. I
Yeah,
loved it.
Travis Clayton, thank you. So I think maybe you could have taken Brendan Rice in the 6th round, and this draft would
Yeah, I
be
was
like
hoping
A
for that too.
plus for me. I think it's a B plus, as
Hmm.
constructed, but I do like Ray Davis. Um,
Yeah, I do too. That was a
and
nice pick. That was
I
a
think Bean
really
is
nice
just
pick.
smart to just kind of build up the defense,
Mhm.
and
Exactly.
we have 13 picks for next year, so
Mhm.
hopefully,
And
we don't end up keeping all of them,
I doubt
um,
it.
because
No.
even this year, we still ended up with 10 draft picks, and do all 10 make the opening roster? Because last year, I think we had, 7 or 8 picks, and we still cut Nick Broker and Alex Austin, who are currently on other teams' 53
Mhm.
man. Or now, I mean, we're in the offseason, but they did
Mhm.
make Houston and New England's roster at the end of the season. So it
Exactly.
will be interesting, but I think Bean did what was necessary to operate, not,
Mhm.
in fear of Kansas City, to do what's best for this team, which is get the D tackle of the future to pair with Ed Oliver, another
Yes.
rotational edge rusher, a backup linebacker, because last season we had every single linebacker on the roster get hurt. We had to pull out a guy from Key West. So it will be nice to
Oh.
actually have, an NFL
Mhm.
caliber linebacker back there as depth. So
Mhm.
yeah,
Also,
13 picks. It is
I
absolutely insane,
oh,
Lauren.
yeah.
But
For
I
we are
honestly, this
not
is
making
one of my
13 picks.
favorite drafts from Bean overall. And it's not just because of
Yes.
Keon. Keon's one of my favorite picks ever.
Mhm.
He still has to do it on the field, but
Mhm.
I'm really excited that he already has reached out to Andre Reed, not just Eric
Yes.
Moulds or Stevie Johnson, but the best receiver
Mhm.
in
Andre
Bill's
Reed.
history for advice. So
Yep.
he has the right
Also
mentality, and
mhm.
if him and Josh can just get that chemistry together like him and Diggs used to have, I think it could be
Oh
a
my
special
god.
connection.
Also, I do want to remind everybody, I know we talked a lot about Javon Solomon and Travis Clayton. Do not sleep on Daquan Hardy. I thought that was one of our best late value picks in this entire
Oh,
draft.
I completely
The
forgot about Daquan
Yeah,
Hardy. I
do not
love
sleep on
Daquan
Daquan
Hardy
Hardy.
pick.
That was an incredible pick. Truth be
Yeah,
told, I really,
that might
really
be the
love
day
this
or
draft.
the best day 3 pick was Daquan
Exactly. That was
Hardy.
definitely one of them for sure. Like out of Keon, out of Cole Bishop, Dwayne Carter, and Ray Davis, who everybody was like, who? But then you look at Ray Davis and you go, wait a minute, this guy was the leader in receiving touchdowns for running backs in the SEC. Receiving touchdowns for a running back.
Yeah,
Think
and
about
not
it.
only that, he has the most in the last 25 years, and just think about all
Exactly.
the great running backs that have came from the SEC between
Mhm.
guys like Alvin Kamara, Ingram, Mark Ingram, of course, any of the
Exactly.
Georgia running backs, even
Mhm.
James Cook, right?
Let him
So
cook. Oh, speak of Georgia players, Cedric Van Granger, one of our best picks, I
I
thought. We
love
needed a
Cedric Van
backup.
Fran.
We really needed a backup center because of, the
Backup,
uncertainty with
he could start this season. That's my
it's
hot
a
take.
competition. It's a competition at center. I actually kind of like that hot take because we could, it's a whole thing of Connor McGovern transitioning to center after losing Mitch Morse. So I really like that pick. I think it's very good value. And obviously, I thought all of our other picks were really good. Some maybe not so great, but I thought they were good. I really think this is an A minus draft class. And the only reason I say A minus was I would have much rather tried to get maybe one more wide receiver in the 6th or 7th round. But
Or the
I,
5th. I would have loved Malik Washington.
oh man, that
Yeah,
would
that
have
would have
been
been
great.
Safety,
nice.
he's
And the
a
fact that
Dolphin.
the Dolphins got him just is kind of killer. But
Yeah.
do we have any final thoughts tonight, either of you? Speak anything you want into existence, except
Um,
I'm gonna
except
speak
the
DJ Chark into existence as the
oh
Bills'
yeah.
next
God.
deep threat because I think we need one more field stretcher, and if you can add DJ Chark, I think that kind of rounds out this receiver room perfectly
Hmm.
because you have someone who can take the top off the defense, so teams have to play, 2 high safeties.
All right.
Um, And then you got Keon, obviously your red zone weapon, the guy underneath, the new go-to guy on third downs.
Yes.
You
I
got
am
Shakir, who can kind of work inside and outside,
mhm.
you know, run after catch extraordinaire. I also really like Curtis Samuel and think he could be
Yeah.
an underrated weapon in the Brady offense. So I think if and Matt Collins too is a dog. Like he's gonna make plays as a fourth, fifth receiver. He may
Mhm.
not, put up huge numbers, but he'll still make some big plays and big moments. And I think he'll be 10 times the receiver Sherfield was for us last year. So if you
Don't
could
you
add
hate
a
on Kurt
DJ,
Sherfield?
if you could add a DJ Chark, that will just make this receiver room not really have too many overall weaknesses, if we're being honest. So
Mhm. Yeah, there's definitely not many weaknesses. I definitely think the only real weakness is lack of a field stretcher, but I brought up
I think you
the
really got that in Keon Coleman.
yeah,
yeah,
it
I
you
would just like
you
someone with
mhm,
more like vertical speed, someone like a DJ
Yeah, I
Chark.
agree.
And I
yeah,
think DJ
I'm on
Chark,
board with that.
but I think, you do have KJ Hamler, you do have Curtis Samuel, who's a 4-3 guy. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see because neither of those
Mhm,
guys have really played with quarterbacks of Josh's caliber.
mhm.
And,
You also have Justin Shorter. Don't forget Justin Shorter.
yeah, let him cook.
Exactly.
But that's all I got for tonight. I mean, I'm excited for the OTAs to start, minicamp
Mhm.
schedule release.
Yeah.
I can't wait for that first game in Buffalo when Keon scores his first touchdown
Oh,
in
man.
front of the home
When
crowd. That's gonna be awesome.
God, I
I
can't
think
wait.
next week as we get closer, I think the schedule comes out the second week of May.
Mhm.
Yep.
So schedule prediction time. You ready for that?
Oh,
Yeah.
That's gonna be fun.
it's gonna
Oh,
be
that's
hot.
gonna be fun.
I'm ready. All right. So, Paul, do you have any last words? I liked Ben's last words. Do you have any?
I do. The last
you
word is
do?
the Bills are not done in the offseason. There is one more trade to be made, or
Oh,
All
one
right,
more
you're
big
like
all right.
signing.
Manifest it. Manifest it. I have a good feeling that
who's
you've
the trade?
manifested something. You know what? As long as it's not Jarvis Landry. You know why I say Jarvis Landry? He
They're
just
either
reported.
going to sign Justin Simmons,
Whew.
or they're going
Ooh,
to trade, for a top wide receiver.
Oh man, Cook, Paul. But the
which
thing
wide
about
receiver?
which wide receiver? We have 13
My
picks
mind's
next year.
saying,
Which one?
Brandon Ayuk, backload it, cut
Ooh,
Von
You're
Miller
still
next
on the
year,
Brandon
and then
Ayuk
you
trade,
could
huh?
still and you still
oh, I
have
love it. I
and you
love
still
it.
have a lot of
Yeah,
cap space for
let's
next year to work with.
go. Yeah, I love it. You'd have to wait until post June 1st until the Tre'Davious White money
Yeah.
comes off the books. But if they're still not very thrilled with it, then yeah, I like the idea of trading for Brandon Ayuk then. But that was a great final thought, Paul. I didn't think Ben's could be topped. That will conclude this showing tonight. Stay tuned on Wednesday for Connor's takes. I am going to drop a lot more wild thoughts for you guys concerning the draft, concerning who other teams drafted, and just things that the Bills might be able to do in the future. We'll get the topics out for that soon enough. But for now, that will wrap us up. Thank you, Ben and Paul, for being absolutely incredible co hosts. Thank you all who are watching, commenting. Make sure you follow us on Twitter, like and subscribe to us on YouTube. And last thing to end the night on a solid positive note, go Bills.
Yeah,
Go
go
Bills.
Bills.